everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we explore the intersection of technology and mental health, a space that's growing more influential by the day. Did you know that nearly 1 in 5 adults in the US lives with a mental illness? That's over 50 million people. According to NIMH, at the same time, mental health apps are seeing a massive surge, valued at over 5 billion globally in 2022 and expected to be double within the next few years. Now, you see technologies everywhere from AI-powered therapy bots to mindfulness applications, smartwatches tracking our emotional cues. But the question remains, what are exactly the pros and cons of technology on mental health? And for that, we have Mr. Nacho Ruiz Hens with us, so we're glad to have you here, Nacho. How are you doing?
Hi, Jordan. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
All right. Good to see you. So Nacho, I'm sure you have a very wonderful story, which I'm sure, a lot of our listeners would be, um, very inspired by. So we'll get that to the end. But before, I start off just with the starting question, I wanted to ask you, what's your take, from your experience, because you're also considered, an ambassador for mental health and technology and integrating both the things. So what's your take? Like from your experience, how has technology shaped the way people talk or deal with mental health? Like what are the positives and negatives?
The question is very well framed, positives and negatives. I think technology is like a double-edged sword because
Hmm.
on the one hand, there's a lot of people sharing about how they feel and
Hmm.
about their mental health struggles, everything they're going through. But on the other hand, sometimes people tend to isolate themselves through technology.
Hmm.
And instead of talking to real people and opening up in real life,
Hmm.
there's less communication in just not about mental health, just in general.
Hmm.
And as a result, we see more people with anxiety and depression or loneliness, things like that. So, and then there's also the overload of information. Sometimes people tend to compare themselves to other people all the time, and that lead, leads to negative feelings. So,
Hmm.
I guess there's positives and negatives.
Well, there's positives and negatives in almost everything, but it depends because I see and I perceive technology as a tool, right? It's not the sword that kills, it's the man that's holding it, right? So how you use or how you leverage technology, I think and I believe that technology has been used more for, the negative side as opposed to how it should have been used or contributing towards the positive side for mental health and the society in general. So, have you noticed any patterns or changes in the types of mental health challenges people face in this digital age that are related to technology?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the expert in this specific topic about the patterns because I started interested in technology
Mm-hmm.
um, through my experience with bipolar disorder. But
Mm-hmm.
in just talking generally in terms of mental health challenges, there's a rise in anxiety disorders, social anxiety, burnout in young
Mm-hmm.
people. There's digital fatigue, doom scrolling. Like people are just scrolling, and they lose track of time, and they're not really doing anything. They don't feel proud about whatever they're accomplishing. Um, Cyberbullying is another
Oh,
big
yes.
topic. The attention span is shorter than before
Mm-hmm.
because we're used to now looking at things. Everything has to be immediate, and we want to jump from one thing to the next. And I think that's creating some impact in emotional regulation and self-awareness. So there's differently. I mean, definitely there are a number of patterns that are happening, and I think depending on your situation, if you're a teenager or a young kid, or if you're a father or a mother, you can see that, and you can form your own views.
Well, speaking of cyberbullying, I have personally witnessed cyberbullying as a result in, suicides. So I totally agree with that. And, this just leads us to the next question, like, what's your take on social media? How is that affecting mental health, especially amongst the young people?
I think the problem with social media and young people is reality distortion. So younger people are more vulnerable. Especially when you're a teenager, you're still, evolving from a boy to a man or from a girl to a woman or whatever, and the case may be. And you may be trying to find out who you really are, trying to find validation, um, and you know you can feel judged and you can feel that you're not enough or that you don't amount as much as other people. So I think you know the there's dopamine as well. So this addiction
Oh,
to
yes.
social media, so people get addicted. It could also be a source of empowerment and connection, right?
Mhm.
Uh, on the flip side, uh, some people that may feel lonely or may need the that validation that we're talking about, they may find their their group of friends, and they may find their I don't know how to put it in I was thinking in Spanish, but I was thinking like in terms of a wolf pack, a pack of wolves, like they can find their pack, and
Yes.
then they create their tribe, right? But I guess if you use social media consciously, it
Mhm.
can be very positive. But
Mhm.
if it's not used consciously, it does have these negative effects that we're talking about.
Especially with, there is a lot of space on social media for like positive platforms, right? With the social media that exists currently in the world, can it truly be a space where, your mental health is safe? Can it truly be a space for you to open up and not be a victim of cyberbullying or not be a victim of social anxiety?
Um, that's a great question, actually. I
Mhm.
think it depends. I participate myself in
Mhm.
some places where there's a lot of mental health conversation, and it's you know for instance in Facebook, there's
Mhm.
communities, there's a lot of moderation, there's community guidelines, so you have to follow certain patterns, otherwise you may be expelled from a group. um, I think there's a lot of support in
Mhm.
those groups, but at the same time the rules sometimes can be limiting,
Mhm.
for people to interact. So for instance, you may be in a group where you're not allowed to contact other members just
Mhm.
because uh, maybe somebody want to publish something, make a post, and then people can comment on the post, and that's fine, but you're not allowed to contact other people because maybe that could be dangerous, or maybe somebody could contact somebody else with a wrong intention. So on the one hand, it's important to protect everybody. On the other hand, how do you ensure that people that want to genuinely connect with other people, can do that on a safe space?
True.
And I think that's a really tricky question and challenge.